For decades, viewers embraced Star Trek as a weekly voyage of optimism. The crew of the Starship Enterprise symbolized courage, discovery, and the dream that different species, and by extension all people, could work together as equals. But while audiences found hope in the adventures of Captain Kirk and his team, a different story was unfolding just outside the camera's frame. Egos clashed. Tempers flared. The relationships that looked so harmonious on screen were often strained by jealousy and ambition. At the center of both triumph and turmoil stood William Shatner. To the world, he was the fearless James T. Kirk, a captain who met cosmic dangers with steady resolve and a wry grin. To those working beside him, he was a driven and sometimes infuriating colleague determined to protect his place in the spotlight. Now, in his later years, Shatner speaks with a frankness that surprises even longtime fans. The man once associated with unshakable heroism admits the past was far messier than viewers ever imagined. His journey, from a dramatic birth in a Canadian snowstorm to a commanding presence on the bridge of the Enterprise, was never a straight line. Each chapter carried its own battles, both personal and professional, shaping the legend we know today. William Shatner's life began in Montreal, Canada on March 22, 1931, during a record-breaking snowstorm so fierce that roads were impassable. His mother gave birth at home, an unplanned and dramatic entrance that seemed to foreshadow a lifetime of unexpected turns. Raised in a close-knit Jewish family, Shatner was an energetic child with an imagination that demanded an audience. By 8, he was attending a children's acting school led by a respected Canadian actress who recognized his natural talent. Within 2 years, he was performing professionally in radio productions, including The Magic Flute for the CBC, where his clear diction and confidence impressed producers. Local critics soon praised his portrayal of Tom Sawyer in a community stage production, noting a presence beyond his years. Yet school was never his strong suit. In 1948, he entered McGill University to study economics, a practical decision meant to satisfy his parents' hopes for stability. But Shatner rarely found himself in lecture halls. Instead, he spent countless hours at the campus theater, writing, acting, and directing. By 1950, a student play he wrote and performed gained such buzz that CBC producers invited him for a television appearance, giving him his first taste of the medium that would eventually define his career. Though he completed his degree, Shatner's heart belonged to the stage. Fate, it seemed, was already setting his course. After graduating, Shatner joined the Canadian National Repertory Theatre, touring the country and learning the craft night after night. But the lure of bigger stages soon called. In 1956, he made his boldest move yet, relocating to New York City to pursue acting full-time, carrying more ambition than money. His Broadway debut came with Tamburlaine the Great, a production that closed after just 20 performances. Though the show failed commercially, it validated Shatner's belief that he could stand among seasoned American performers. Over the next few years, he built a resume across live television and anthology series that defined the golden age of TV. Guest roles on Alfred Hitchcock Presents. The Defenders and The Outer Limits showcased his versatility, but his 2 appearances on The Twilight Zone were pivotal. In Nightmare at 20,000 Feet, he portrayed a man unraveling in terror aboard a plane haunted by a creature only he could see. The performance revealed his ability to embody tension and barely contain panic, qualities that would later make his most famous character so compelling. Still, the road was uneven. There were lean months when work was scarce and rent loomed large. Yet Shatner's willingness to throw himself fully into every part kept his name circulating among producers and casting directors. By the mid-1960s, he had become a reliable presence on American television, though he had yet to find the role that would forever link his name to science fiction legend. By 1965, Shatner was steadily employed but far from a household name. At the time, Star Trek already existed in embryonic form. Creator Gene Roddenberry had produced a pilot titled The Cage, featuring Jeffrey Hunter as Captain Christopher Pike. NBC executives deemed it too slow and intellectual for mainstream audiences. Unwilling to abandon the concept, the network made an unusual decision. They ordered a second pilot. Jeffrey Hunter, citing a desire to focus on film and perhaps deeper disagreements behind the scenes, chose not to return. Producers needed a new captain. They showed Shatner the rejected pilot. He admired the sleek sets and forward-thinking premise, but found the performances overly stiff. Shatner sensed the captain needed a lighter touch, someone who could lead with both authority and approachability. When he stepped into the role of James Tiberius Kirk, he reimagined the character. Kirk would be curious about the unknown, enthusiastic about exploration, and relaxed enough to share a joke with his crew. Instead of barking commands, he might lean toward a helmsman and casually say, "Take us left, George." To craft Kirk's personality, Shatner drew inspiration from two figures. The first was Horatio Hornblower, the fictional British naval officer celebrated for intelligence and bravery. The second was Alexander the Great, whom Shatner had portrayed in a failed 1963 television pilot. From Alexander, he borrowed a magnetic charisma and a sense of destiny. From Hornblower, a thoughtful leadership style. Humor was another key ingredient. Shatner insisted that Kirk should laugh, tease, and occasionally break the tension. This mix of charm and command distinguished Kirk from the rigid military archetypes common on television at the time. When Star Trek premiered in September 1966, Kirk became the embodiment of courage and optimism in an era marked by political turmoil and social change. His unwavering confidence and willingness to embrace diversity resonated with viewers seeking hope. Critics soon recognized that Shatner's performance anchored the series, giving it a human heart amid the futuristic gadgets and alien worlds. But even as audiences warmed to the captain, life behind the scenes was far less harmonious. While viewers witnessed a crew united by purpose, the set of Star Trek often simmered with discord. Shatner's ambition and constant pursuit of screen time ruffled feathers among his co-stars. His habit of suggesting line changes or requesting extra camera coverage created friction, particularly with Leonard Nimoy, whose portrayal of Spock was earning immense fan attention. Some cast members accused Shatner of monopolizing the spotlight. He later admitted that he sometimes rewrote dialogue to enhance his own character's presence, a move that did little to ease tensions. Nichelle Nichols, George Takei, and James Doohan each expressed frustration in interviews over the years, describing moments when professional rivalry spilled into personal resentment. The first major flashpoint arrived during the filming of the very first broadcast episode, The Man Trap, in September 1966. Technical delays and long hours heightened tempers, and arguments over lines and blocking occasionally brought production to a standstill. What fans perceived as camaraderie on screen often masked real rivalries just out of frame. Yet the friction may have fueled the series' energy. The competitive atmosphere pushed each actor to deliver memorable performances, and despite occasional clashes, the cast ultimately produced a groundbreaking show that inspired generations of viewers and countless future scientists, engineers, and dreamers. Decades later, William Shatner looks back with candor. He acknowledges that his drive to succeed sometimes came at the expense of friendships. "I was young, ambitious, and perhaps too focused on the work," he has said in interviews. Yet he also recognizes that the tension behind the scenes did not diminish the importance of what Star Trek accomplished. The series, canceled after just 3 seasons, became a cultural phenomenon in reruns and through an ever-expanding franchise of films, spin-offs, and devoted conventions. Shatner's Captain Kirk remains an icon of optimism and leadership, a figure who continues to inspire audiences to embrace exploration and diversity. In later years, Shatner's career flourished beyond the Enterprise. From acclaimed performances in Boston Legal to his adventurous spirit as an author, musician, and even space tourist at age 90, he has proven that reinvention is possible at any stage of life. Looking back, he sees the chaos of those early days as both a challenge and a gift. The very conflicts that once threatened to derail Star Trek helped forge a series that felt alive, urgent, and real. The legend of Captain Kirk endures, but so does the more complicated, very human story of the man who brought him to life. When Star Trek ended in 1969 after only 3 seasons, Shatner faced an abrupt career vacuum. The series that once consumed his schedule had not yet become the cultural force it is today. Jobs were scarce, and Shatner found himself traveling the country for theater work, often living out of a camper truck to make ends meet. Yet these years of struggle hardened his resilience. He took every role offered, from guest spots on network dramas to commercials, gradually rebuilding a career that many thought had peaked with Captain Kirk. By the mid-1970s, a surprise awaited. Star Trek had found a massive new audience in syndication. Reruns aired daily, cultivating a passionate fan base. Conventions sprang up across the United States, where Shatner encountered crowds of admirers eager to celebrate a show the networks had once dismissed. The enthusiasm reignited Hollywood's interest in the franchise and, ultimately, in Shatner himself. The unexpected popularity of the reruns paved the way for a cinematic revival. In 1979, Shatner reprised Captain Kirk in Star Trek, the motion picture, a high-budget film that launched a string of movies spanning the 1980s and early 90s. Each production demanded intense schedules and complex special effects. But Shatner embraced the challenge. His portrayal of Kirk evolved, older, more reflective, yet still fearless. Films like The Wrath of Khan and The Undiscovered Country deepened the character, allowing audiences to watch their beloved captain confront aging, friendship, and sacrifice. Shatner eventually directed Star Trek V, The Final Frontier in 1989, a lifelong dream that tested both his creativity and his diplomacy with the cast and crew. Though the film received mixed reviews, it cemented his reputation as more than an actor. He was now a filmmaker steering the starship from behind the camera. While the Star Trek films kept Shatner in the public eye, he refused to be defined solely by one role. Through the 1990s and 2000s, he reinvented himself repeatedly, hosting television shows, writing best-selling science fiction novels, and recording spoken-word albums that cultivated a quirky cult following. A major triumph arrived with Boston Legal, where his portrayal of the eccentric attorney Denny Crane earned 2 Emmy Awards. The character's blend of humor and unexpected vulnerability proved that Shatner could still surprise audiences and command critical acclaim decades after his first success. Even into his 90s, Shatner continued to embody the spirit of exploration he once dramatized on screen. In 2021, he became the oldest person to travel to the edge of space aboard a Blue Origin suborbital flight. Emerging from the capsule, he described the experience as profound and life-changing, a poetic full circle for the man who spent a lifetime imagining interstellar travel. This real-life journey thrilled longtime fans, blurring the line between fiction and reality. Captain Kirk had finally touched the cosmos for real. Today, William Shatner's influence reaches far beyond the bridge of the Enterprise. His career, spanning radio plays, Broadway stages, television milestones, blockbuster films, music, and even actual spaceflight, stands as a testament to relentless reinvention. He transformed a 3-season science fiction series into a cultural phenomenon and turned personal ambition into a lifetime of iconic performances. Younger generations who discover Star Trek continue to see in Captain Kirk not just a character, but a symbol of curiosity and courage. Meanwhile, Shatner himself, with characteristic wit and candor, reminds them that every legend is built on real, imperfect humanity. Even as age advanced, Shatner treated storytelling as a lifelong calling. He toured with one-man shows where he spoke directly to audiences about fame, creativity, and the quirks of the entertainment industry. These evenings were part stand-up, part confessional, mixing sharp humor with intimate memories of co-stars, directors, and the unpredictable twists of a 7-decade career. Fans often remarked that seeing him live felt like stepping into a living archive of television history, yet he never delivered the same performance twice. Improvisation kept the stories alive and fresh, proof that his stage instincts remained razor-sharp. Away from the spotlight, Shatner quietly nurtured a commitment to philanthropy. A lifelong horse enthusiast, he organized annual charity horse shows that raised millions for children's hospitals, veteran programs, and environmental causes. He lent his name and energy to organizations supporting clean water initiatives and disaster relief. Rather than treating charity as an occasional duty, Shatner approached it with the same intensity he once brought to acting, organizing events, recruiting sponsors, and personally meeting beneficiaries. This side of his life deepened the public's understanding of the man behind the celebrity. Writing became another avenue for exploration. From science fiction novels co-authored with Judith and Garfield Reeves-Stevens to candid autobiographies like Up Till Now and Live Long and Shatner revealed a restless mind fascinated by technology, philosophy, and the possibilities of the future. His books blended anecdote with speculation, encouraging readers to imagine what lies beyond the stars while also grappling with very human themes: aging, friendship, and the constant need to adapt. As conventions and streaming platforms introduced Star Trek to younger audiences, Shatner embraced the role of pop culture elder. He appeared on podcasts, late-night shows, and fan documentaries, offering witty commentary on everything from science fiction's social impact to the evolution of television itself. Rather than retreating from the spotlight, he seemed energized by new media, delighting in the fact that memes, GIFs, and viral clips kept Captain Kirk relevant to audiences who weren't yet born when the Enterprise first launched. In recent interviews, Shatner speaks openly about the passage of time. He describes aging not as a slow fade, but as another adventure, one that demands curiosity and acceptance. He often recalls how looking back on early triumphs brings gratitude rather than regret. For him, the true mission was never simply about exploring space. It was about exploring life itself. The friendships, the conflicts, the relentless drive to create. These, he believes, are the real voyages that matter. William Shatner's story now stretches beyond his own lifetime. Star Trek continues to inspire scientists, storytellers, and dreamers. New series, films, and fan creations ensure that the character of Captain Kirk, and the spirit of exploration he represents, will outlast any single performer. Shatner often says that art and imagination are humanity's greatest tools for survival. His own life, filled with reinvention and fearless experimentation, stands as a testament to that belief. Whether remembered as an actor, author, musician, or the first starship captain to touch real space, his influence remains woven into the culture of discovery. Shatner has long viewed technology as both marvel and mirror. While Star Trek predicted tablets, cell phones, and voice-activated computers, he remains most intrigued by how these inventions shape the human spirit. In panels and interviews, he often reminds audiences that gadgets are only as inspiring as the people who wield them. For him, innovation matters less for its circuitry than for its capacity to connect hearts and expand empathy, a lesson he believes Gene Roddenberry wove into every frame of the original series. In recent years, younger actors stepping into the Star Trek universe have sought Shatner's perspective. Though never one to dictate choices, he offers candid advice about balancing craft with self-care, fame with privacy. At conventions, he welcomes conversations with new captains and crew, emphasizing that the true legacy of the Enterprise is collaboration across generations. Many of these performers describe their encounters with him as a passing of the torch, a blessing from the man who first charted the course. Less widely known but equally passionate is Shatner's relationship with music. From spoken-word albums to collaborations with rock legends, he treats each project as another form of storytelling. His later releases, mixing rock, country, and orchestral arrangements, reveal a performer unafraid to experiment. He jokes that music lets him captain a different kind of starship, one built of rhythm and lyric rather than steel and warp drive. Over the last decade, honors have poured in from around the world. Lifetime Achievement Awards, honorary doctorates, and tributes at international film festivals. Nations far from Hollywood celebrate his influence on science fiction and popular culture. Shatner often accepts these accolades with a mixture of humor and humility, reminding audiences that he once worried about paying rent after Star Trek's cancellation. Each award, he says, feels like proof that perseverance outshines early setbacks. Today, whether addressing a packed convention hall or posting a single line on social media, Shatner continues to invite people to wonder. He encourages fans to look up at the night sky and imagine what lies beyond, to treat curiosity as a daily practice. For him, the voyage is never over. It simply changes form. That enduring call to exploration, equal parts science, art, and human connection, may be the most lasting gift of his extraordinary life.